G'day Fools, and welcome to the Motley Fools regular reading series called What I've Been Reading. Yep, very imaginatively titled. It was all my work. But we bring you the stuff that our team have been reading, frankly, and we thought if they find it interesting, if it's informing their investing, we know if you're watching this YouTube channel, hopefully you haven't just stumbled on it accidentally. If you have, thanks for coming by. But we figure you're probably interested in investing, and given our team are voracious readers, no more than this man, by the way, who I'll introduce in a second, we want to share it with you. So hopefully you're enjoying it. If you are, can you do us a favor? If you like the video, please hit the like button. Now that's good for my ego, it's good for Ryan's, but more importantly, it helps other people find the video. And then if you are enjoying the video and you want more from us, the subscribe button and the notification bell are your friend, because that means YouTube will show you when we have more stuff out. We have about 2 to 3 videos a week at the moment, and sometimes even one more than that, but lots of great content. We try not to overdo it. We try and bring you quality content. If you are enjoying it, then maybe you'll want some more. Now, I've already mentioned him already. Ryan, welcome to What I've Been Reading. You are, I'm absolutely certain, the most voracious reader in the investing team. I'm going to say by the length of the straight. Now, not to criticize anybody else, you just get through an amazing amount of content. And this one is fascinating, mate. Young Men and Fire by Newman. Now, what I like about your reading, frankly, and again, I love all the people, what I like about your reading is I'll say eclectic. I'll say it's different. You always have a different perspective, and by the way, our members get some great value for that because you write some great stuff based on what you've been reading for our members. So if you're not a Motley Fool member, do yourself a favor, join in there. But that's enough of me talking, mate. Tell our viewers about Young Men and Fire, if you would.
Sure thing, Scott. Thank you again for having me. I do always enjoy talking about some of the books that I've been reading. And look, I suppose something that you sort of alluded to there as well is that a lot of the reading that I do isn't necessarily about investing directly. I try to draw a lot of takeaways related to investing from the books that I read. And I think that's a really important thing for people to do, to gain an understanding of the markets and to build business models, to build mental models as well, to cope through a lot of different circumstances too. The book I have been reading, Young Men and Fire. Scott, you did get the name right. Norman McLean. We kept on calling him Henry McLean for some reason before this.
I did, yes.
But credit to you.
Norman is, thank you.
Young Men and Fire by Norman McLean. And this is really a non-fiction account of the 1949 Mann Gulch disaster in Montana, USA. Basically, what happened in this situation, there were 16 elite firefighters known as smoke jumpers. These are basically firefighters who literally jump out of a plane, parachute into the forest surrounded by fire, and put it out. So elite firefighters. Essentially, though, what they thought they were diving into on this routine day was a routine fire. But essentially, within minutes, they were running for their lives, and most didn't make it out alive. In fact, of the 16, only 3 made it out alive. And one of the ones that I do want to talk about in a moment is Wag Dodge. He was the foreman of the group. Wag survived, as I said, along with 2 others, while 13 others didn't. And essentially, what McLean does, the author, he wrestles with the question about why some of those people lived and why some of them died. It's really a recounting of the tragedy, piecing together survivor interviews, forest records, his own field research as well. So it's a really fascinating one.
So tell us about the fire itself. I will get to the investing takeaways first, but tell us the story of the Mann Gulch fire, because I believe I've already read something you've written about it. So I know that there were some specific things that were done by those who did survive and those who didn't.
There was. This was a really brutal fire. They basically call it an explosion. You know, to sort of think about the scale of this fire and how quickly it was spreading is just, it's almost unfathomable to imagine. You know, we're talking about 2 or 3 square miles per minute in terms of what, the ground that was being burned. So really, there was very little hope for a lot of the people on the ground. But as I said a moment ago about Wag Dodge, his story was what really drew me, I suppose, to this recounting. How he survived after what seemed like such a crazy decision at the time, but also perfectly rational in hindsight. Because when the fire actually started racing towards them, the entire group basically started racing uphill, which, might seem silly, but, I suppose in the circumstances, is all they could do. They were running away from the fire, which was climbing up towards them. They were running up the hill to try and make it over this gulch. But essentially, what he did was, instead of, he recognized that they were struggling. He recognized that there was no way that all of them were going to make it across this ridge. So what he did was he ordered his men to abandon their equipment and stop sprinting, basically. He said he actually built a new fire in order to then to step into it. Now, again, this seems crazy at the time. You know, if you were in that circumstance and you were trying to run away from fire, the last thing you want to do is try and climb into a new one. In fact, one of his men actually was heard saying, "To hell with that, I'm getting out of here." And that's actually going to be the title of an upcoming article as well on the member center. So there's a little spoiler alert for our members. But to hell with that, I'm getting out of here. Most of the men actually followed that man and continued running up the hill. And as I said, most of them perished. What Wag did though seemed crazy at the time, and it was crazy and likely terrifying. But as I said, he was one of the only ones to survive. And one of the reasons for that was at the moment, he actually realized that the fire couldn't burn what had already been burned. So essentially what he was doing, he was thinking on the spot. He was creating a new fire, burning that ground, gonna literally lie down in the middle of it and wait until the storm passed over his head. As I said, that was the part of the story that really drew me to the entire recounting, and I think an area where we can start to take away some lessons as well as investors.
Which is a lovely segue. So let's do exactly that, mate. I'm assuming starting your own fire in your portfolio is not what you're suggesting, but I do suspect there are some parallels.
Good guess.
What investing lessons do you take from the story?
Look, I think to really summarize it in one really fine sentence, what Wag dodged was he didn't outrun the fire, he outreasoned it. And I think that's essentially what we need to do as investors as well. Because, look, as long-term investors, it is inevitable that we will face difficult circumstances in the markets. We've already faced it this year. We faced it back in 2020 as well through COVID. We've faced it countless times throughout history. And I don't want to scare investors, but it is inevitable that it will happen again. In fact, it's probably likely that it will happen within 12 to 24 months as well. And that's not to scare people. That's just the reality of long-term investing. What we're essentially trying to do is out-reason those periods on the markets. We're not trying to we're not trying to basically let the fire overrun us and give into the panic as a lot of the other people in the market are doing. Essentially, some of the lessons, some of the takeaways that I think investors can really take away from this is, first of all, clear combustible growth ahead of time. That's essentially what firefighters do. They try to prepare for these sort of circumstances. They backburn, they try to get rid of some of those, that dry leaves and dry kindling, and be prepared. They want to know the position. So in terms of investing, we want to know position sizes. We want to trim excess concentration before fear spikes. That's not to say we want to be overly active in our management of a portfolio, but we do want to be prepared. And I'll give you a quick example. Me, Scott, I'm generally pretty comfortable having a fair amount of concentration in my positions. I would generally be happy to have maybe 10 to 12% of my portfolio in some of my higher conviction ideas. But you do need to understand when they may need to be trimmed, just to be prepared. A second lesson, establish an escape plan. As I said, the firefighters really would have benefited from having one. Wag Dodge's idea was really out there in the moment, but maybe had he explained that to his men beforehand, then maybe they would have actually had an understanding that, okay, this is what's happening, this is what we've got to do. And this is one of the things that the Motley Fool is constantly trying to, share with members and share with just regular investors, is that these times will come. As I said a moment ago, they're inevitable. But we want you to be prepared so that when they do come, you know exactly what to do. What to do isn't to sell into the panic. It's actually to basically lie down, accept that this fire is going over us, and know that it will pass eventually. And that when it does, we will be in a better position. And that really takes me to the next point as well. Trust the blackened ground. Fire can't reburn what has already been burned. I think for investors, it can feel almost crazy to continue holding on, and certainly to buy things when the market is going down, when all things seem to be collapsing around us. It does seem insane, but actually that's when the opportunities really start to arise. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like to have some cash handy within the portfolio at all times, because when these sort of situations do arise, I can treat it not as an existential threat, but more as an opportunity to capture. Finally, as well, I just like to say as well, don't just automatically chase the crowd uphill. As I said, through those sort of periods, those dark periods on the market, we can sort of tend to see what others are doing. Others are panicking, others are selling into that panic. why don't we do the same? I think we need to do the same. It's almost like that fear of missing out, but in reverse. I think in this sense, what we need to do is just have a plan in mind, stick to that plan. And I think that can be the safer option. And as I said, being prepared, understanding that those sort of things do happen on the market does fall, and it is inevitable that it will, but stick to your plan. And I think in the long run, you will greatly benefit.
Beautifully said, mate. Obviously a tragic story, but some investing opportunities, investing lessons that we can take from it. Hopefully the fires have managed to learn a few things as well for future fires. Mate, really appreciate you sharing the book with us. Viewers, I know you've enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure you'd rush out and grab a copy of Young Men and Fire by Norman MacLean. I got it right again, Ryan. That's twice in a row.
Norman, well done.
But thank you. Not that old yet. I'm getting there. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, please do subscribe, like, all those good things. Until we speak again, full on.
Full on.